Even though it was quite old and lacking in terms of safety and technology, Isuzu's long-serving MU-X has been a popular choice for Australian families, four-wheel drivers and campers. But that old model, it's been around since 2013, it's finally been put out to pasture because we've got a new Isuzu MU-X for 2021. It's got the same updates and improvements that debuted on the D-Max last year, and it's got its own twist on being a capable and versatile four-wheel drive family wagon. We are in the middle of lockdown at the moment, so unfortunately we're unable to test out the 3.5 tonne towing capacity this new Isuzu MU-X has, and we can't go off-road to test out the locking rear differential and off-road driving modes. But this is a family SUV at the end of the day, so we've got a lot to dig into. There are 7 seats inside. We're going to explore all of those, see how comfortable, practical and versatile they are, check out the interior technology as well, and see what this thing is like around town. See what the powertrain and the suspension is like. Is it refined? Is it comfortable? We're going to check it all out. Let's go get stuck into it. With a range that starts from $47,900 before on-road costs, that's for a base spec two-wheel drive, we've got arguably what is the most pragmatic choice in the range. It's a mid-spec LS-U with a four-wheel drive powertrain. This has an asking price of $59,900 before on-road costs, which is a significant jump over the previous generation MU-X. LS-U is defined by 18-inch alloy wheels and some chrome garnishings on the outside and manual cloth seats with electric lumbar adjustment on the inside. It also gets a larger 9-inch infotainment display, dual zone air conditioning, sensor key with push button start and an electric tailgate. LST ups the ante with 20-inch wheels, electric leather heated seats, interior ambient lighting and tyre pressure monitoring. Naturally, this MU-X is quite similar to the Isuzu D-Max Ute, but that's not necessarily a bad thing for this wagon. There's a lot of practicality, which I do like. Number one, these pop-out cup holders. Got 2 of those there under each air vent. They're handy to have, and that's in addition to the 2 cup holders in the center console here. You've also got twin glove boxes there, a bit of extra storage. This one is broken up by this extra box here, which I'm not really sure what that's there for, but anyway, it's still pretty handy. Infotainment is the same as the D-Max as well, and in this LS-U specification, you do get the larger display. It's a decent system. It's not the best operating system in the world. However, you do get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, native navigation, and digital radio, so all those boxes are ticked. Got your air conditioning controls below there, and then your power outlets. There's one 12 volt, one USB hiding behind this rubber flap. It's kind of hard to get to sometimes. And there's an auxiliary audio input there as well. So you don't have a stack of power outputs, but I suppose it's enough for most people. There is some extra storage there below. That's a nice bin. That's handy for things like power cables, wallets, that sort of thing. And another difference, one of the few differences between the D-Max and the MU-X, this has an electric park brake. So that does free up this center console area a little bit. Center console is a decent size. There's no power outlets or lining in there. You do need to spend up a little bit more to LST specification in order to get leather and electric adjustment in the seats. These cloth ones, they're probably not the best looking seats in the world in my opinion, but they do the job, they're comfortable, and they've got decent adjustment. You do, however, get a nicely wrapped steering wheel here. That does have tilt and reach adjustment as well, so you can dial yourself in pretty nicely behind the wheel. And also, speaking of the steering wheel, you've got your usual array of buttons on there as well. That runs through the multifunction display in front of you there. It's fairly basic. You don't get tire pressure monitoring in this specification. You need to go up to LST for that as well. Another thing to note with this MU-X, which we unfortunately haven't been able to test out this time because we're not able to get it out into the bush at the moment, but you've got a locking rear differential and you've also got this rough terrain button here. Now that is meant to adapt the traction control system on this MU-X to make it better off-road. I don't know how good it is yet, but I'm very keen to find out, so stay tuned. So for around town, you're not going to use these buttons at all, and you're going to keep it in two-wheel drive high range. So that means it's a rear-wheel drive car, normal for around town. And that's the family duty stuff that is still very important. And speaking of which, let's go jump in the second row and check it out. First things first, second row space in this MU-X. Admittedly, I do sit a little closer to the steering wheel than other people. However, legroom is still in good supply. There's plenty of room here between my knees and the seats, lots of foot room as well. I do like these rubber floor mats. They're probably not the last word in terms of fashion, but they're practical and they're durable. And for a family car, that's important. This will clean up quite easily. In terms of other amenities, you do have a couple of USB outlets here, that's handy, and a small storage nook. You could probably fit a wallet in there, but not much more. 4 kilo pop down hook there, that's for your takeaway food or something like that. And you've also got some cup holders in this pop down armrest. They are the cassette style, they pop out the front like that. If you're going to compare this MU-X to some other large family SUVs that aren't off-road capable and can't tow 3.5 tons, you might be feeling a little bit underwhelmed. I'm thinking things like Sorento, Santa Fe, even Kluger. They've probably got nicer interiors and finishes than this MU-X. Even things like Fortuner and Pajero Sport, they're a lot older than this car, but they're not necessarily worse in terms of interior fit out and finish. And that is a little bit of a shame considering this is an all new model MU-X. You kind of feel like they could have done a little bit more just to liven up the interior experience of this car. But in terms of fit for comfort, practicality and safety, it does score well. The 60-40 split is on the wrong side for our right-hand drive market, but the seat does tumble forward quite nicely. That's good for access into the third row. I'll just jump in now. So I've moved that second row of seats out of the way just so you can see what's going on here a little better, and I can show you how much room is in this third row. Pull the seat back down, click it in, pull the backrest up. Now I'll get comfortable here with my headrest up. You can see that that is pretty tight for me. My knees are hard up against the second row in front of me there, and the seat doesn't slide backwards or forwards to give you more space in the third row. However, visibility is really good. I like seeing out through the windscreen in front, around the windows. There is a lot of glass in this car and that does help. We've also got cup holders, a little bit of storage here, and also air vents, and that's all pretty good stuff. But in terms of outright space, it's probably best suited for kids most of the time. Having an electric tailgate on a mid-spec MU-X is a nice touch. And as you can see here, in 7-seat mode, there is still a decent amount of boot space on offer. On top of that, you've got some extra storage under this false floor here. You could put some dirty things, recovery gear, towels, or whatever it might be. There is a 12-volt power outlet, a few tie-down points, and a light. That's all pretty good. But if you need maximum space in the back of the MU-X, let's get this third row out of the way. Once we convert this MU-X into 2-seat mode, you can see there is acres of space in the back here. It folds flat as well. My first thought was throw an inflatable mattress in the back here. You could go camping quite comfortably for 2 people in here out of the weather. Or of course, if you're going on a trip to your favorite Swedish furniture supplier, you could fit a lot of stuff in the back here. And that, at the end of the day, helps the versatility of this MU-X just a little bit more. Safety gets vastly improved with this new Isuzu MU-X. There's technology like autonomous emergency braking, rear cross traffic alert, blind spot monitoring, lane departure warning and lane keep assist, amongst many other new features standard right across the range. Under the bonnet of the new MU-X is Isuzu's latest 3-litre turbo diesel 4-cylinder engine. This makes 140 kilowatts and 450 newton meters, running through a 6-speed automatic transmission. There is no option for a manual gearbox in the range. Driving this MU-X is a familiar experience for a couple of reasons. Firstly, there's a lot of new D-Max going on here, so if you are familiar with the new D-Max, you'll slide right into this thing and know what's going on. One of the big things there is the electric steering. It's quite light, firstly, at low speeds, and then it weights up nicely around town. And Isuzu has done a nice job of making this MU-X, I nearly said D-Max there, making this MU-X feel easy to get around in and around town. And because this has a tighter turning circle than the D-Max Ute, you can find yourself nipping through tighter parts of town a lot easier. I'm talking about things like shopping centre car parks and that sort of thing. Now, along with the shorter wheelbase, we've got the same 5-link coil suspension that the old MU-X had. It doesn't have leaf springs like the D-Max, but it's been stiffened up for that 3.5 ton towing capacity. The rear sway bars are quite a bit thicker and the springs are stiffer as well, but ride comfort is actually not too bad overall. Now, one element there is the placard indicated tyre pressure on this new MU-X. It's 29 PSI or 200 kPa. It's not very high, and that does help this thing soak up bumps nicely. If you're looking for a dynamic driving experience though, you're not really going to get it in this MU-X. It's comfortable, it's easy to drive, but it does squirm and float around a little bit, and it doesn't really corner nicely. It does hold the road well enough, I have to say, but it's not really that sort of car. And if you're looking for a refined powertrain, you might need to look elsewhere as well. This is a classic Isuzu 3-litre, 4-cylinder turbo diesel engine. Things like Mitsubishi's 2.4 litre, Ford's 2-litre engine, they're more refined quite easily. But I do have to say I like this Isuzu diesel, even though it is a little bit rough on the edges. It's got a great reputation for reliability, and it's got a really lazy power delivery in the way that torque comes on. So although it might not be the fastest, it might not be the most refined, it does have things to like about it regardless. But for a town car, for a family car, in terms of comfort, safety, the interior, the driving experience, it does hit the nail on the head pretty well. There is some particularly good news for the grey nomads of Australia, who have been historically big fans of the MU-X over the years. The brake towing capacity has been improved. Now it is a segment-leading 3,500 kilograms. However, the 5.9 tonne gross combination mass means your effective payload at full towing capacity is small. Let me explain. The gross combination mass, or GCM for short, is the maximum allowable weight of your vehicle and trailer combined, and that includes things like occupants, gear, and accessories. And unlike a Toyota Land Cruiser or Land Rover Defender, you are unable to use both of your maximum towing capacity and your maximum payload at the same time in this MU-X. That means with a 3.5 tonne trailer on the back, the MU-X is left with a relatively tiny payload left over for things like gear and or passengers. The new generation MU-X is a big benefit for Isuzu, in particular in terms of safety and technology. Those two things are now strengths, and to be honest, they used to be big weaknesses for the MU-X. But beyond that, this is kind of the same recipe that we have known for a few years now. It's got a rough but gutsy turbo diesel motor, smooth 6-speed automatic gearbox, and good riding characteristics around town. So if you want a 4-wheel drive that's good off-road, got a good towing capacity but can still swallow up the family, this is still a good option. However, it's not the same value proposition that it used to be, so you will need to weigh up competition. I'm thinking Mitsubishi Pajero Sport and Toyota Fortuner. They are pretty close to this thing in a few aspects. But regardless of that, this MU-X is a good thing, and I think it's going to be a popular and successful model in Australia for many years to come. Now let me know in the comments below, is this the best one in the segment, or would you choose something else like maybe the Fortuner or the Pajero Sport? Hit me up in the comments, hit like while you're there, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.